Welcome to the ICS Radio Hour half hour. It's part two of a previous conversation. If you want to go back to the original conversation, look up the title. That'll be something like "Why Are Conferences in ICS Terrible?" with Dwayen and Eric.
Yeah, we'll
Uh,
put the link in the description as well.
exactly. But if you're here, you may as well come along for the ride, and let's talk about how to be a good conference attendee and how to make conferences maybe a little less terrible with Dwayne and Eric, from two people who both presented at conferences, who attended lots of conferences, and who have been a part of many conferences. I think both of us have seen what makes a good one and what makes a bad one, and sometimes what makes a good one is having people who are engaged and interested. So that's the beginning talk. Dwayne, anything you want to talk about?
Let's say it a little different, or let me say it a little differently from my perspective is how to get the most out of a conference.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well said. Well, cool. Well,
you can still get something out of a so-called horrible one, right?
that's right. You always can. So, look, I kind of have a group of rules that I have when I go into conference. Again, I'm a salesperson, but I've attended many conferences in the past. I used to attend when I was working in more straight oil and gas as a system integrator. I used to attend conferences about the business of like natural gas extraction, which was never really never really got into the technology stuff that I was really interested in, but I still went to it because it was interesting and I learned a lot about the industry. Um, so that brings up the first kind of point is um, I think tip one for an attendee to make something maybe a little less horrible is kind of understand what kind of conference you're going into. On the previous show, we kind of talked a little about kind of the four big ideas of conferences, whether they're kind of thought pieces or educational or kind of product pitch conferences, or maybe more industry specific or regulation driven. So kind of know, hey, I'm attending this conference for the next day or 2 days or whatever, and I'm gonna fly to Orlando, and maybe my kids are gonna go to Disney, or maybe I'm gonna go to Chicago and eat a deep dish pizza, or hey, I'm going to California and get some sunshine. But beyond that, like, kind of understand, kind of what the general idea of the conference is. I think that's your first job, right? And maybe,
So let me stop you right there. So I think what I just heard you say is pay attention to what kind of conference it is, and maybe go back to the last posting we made. But more importantly, figure that out and at least make sure you're aware of what kind of conference it is, and maybe even back up a little further and say, I have to convince my boss to give me budget to go to maybe one of the pricier ones that's more about education, if that's what I'm trying to go for. Or if I'm going to a commercial one and realize there's a lot of booths and a lot of there's education in a product pitch. I mean, we should be a little kinder to our own brethren. There is, yeah, maybe I'm looking to buy something soon, so I do want to go attend, and I know five different people that participate in that part of the market are going to be there, and I'll at least start getting a feel for what they are and get a T-shirt.
you can always get t-shirts and socks, right? So yeah, so know what you're doing, and I think that the second job is, and again, this is maybe even an optional part of the job, is do your best to, before you do it, kind of look at the agenda, see what the talks are, see who's giving them, maybe look up a little bit about who those people are that are giving the talks, and maybe preemptively figure out, I want to do this one and this one and this one, and kind of figure out where you want to spend your day and where what you might want to get out of those, and think just a little bit about each of those talks and maybe why you'd want to attend those. I think that's a good way to start, at least. Yeah. So yeah, that good enough. And I think your second job. So that's really the first job, and then the second job is a two-parter. But
Well,
they're
I'm sorry. I know you kind of paused there waiting for a reaction from me. I would also say this is, if you are, especially if you're dealing with a little bit of a more of a commercial one, and a lot of times these places have two or three tracks. I don't feel like this is something you need to hear because it's pretty common. But look, if you go sit in on that first, and I'm talking to speakers here again, write a good abstract. Make sure that what you write is good for the attendees to read and make a decision on where to attend. But if you are an attendee and you go in and that abstract is wrong, or if there's an issue, make sure you have a backup. Make sure if there's two tracks, obviously it's easy to go to the other one or go spend your time more effectively. But no matter what, go make sure you're using your time effectively. So if you go to a session and it's horrible for whatever reason, don't feel bad about getting up.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, nobody's really looking at you.
Yeah.
That's another good thing to remember. Unless it's a room maybe of two people, then you're going to be pretty noticeable. But hopefully there's a few more than that. Okay, so going back to that, right? Your only other job, I think, as a conference attendee is to, one, be interested, which comes back to the previous conversation I had, and two, do your best to be interesting as well. So go talk to other people, go chit chat, go, if somebody's getting coffee in the morning, go say hi and say, hey, what do you do out of interest, right? Be curious about what other people are doing, because again, as we talked about in the previous show, everybody in that conference is there for a reason, generally to maybe learn something, maybe because they're part of the bigger term of community that we're a part of. Everybody should be there because they at least are slightly interested in what they're doing, unless of course they're just the person refilling the coffee. So yeah, so be interested, be interesting, be willing to go out of your element a little bit and have a chat with somebody. Realize that other person is probably also trying to have a chat. Maybe they're going against their better instincts and their engineering mindset, and said they don't really want to chat with somebody either. So do your best there as well. So.
Yeah, I think that's as I get older, that's easier. But I certainly remember early in career not just going and not really talking to people and all that. So good, definitely good advice.
Yeah. Well, remember, nobody's there to be an enemy of anybody else, right?
Yeah, by and large.
By and large.
I guess maybe that goes back to your preparation, right? As goofy as it sounds, is like, how do you think about what you say to people? And, or think about some questions that you want to have answered, and how might you steer a conversation?
Yeah, but don't make it a crazy obsession. Just like I said, be open to a conversation, be willing, and be a person who you think you'd want to be able to talk to. So
yeah.
But then, but getting back to like more tactical things as well. Then, okay, maybe I've shown up. Maybe I know I want to focus on one or two things. Maybe I want to buy a product. Maybe I want to understand more about a market or understand more about something that maybe I'm not as familiar with, right? So, for example, in the past, Dwayne, you were presenting on things like vulnerability management, in OT and other things like that. So generally, when you were setting up your talks, like you'd focus on one or two or 3 points, right? Mm-hmm. Would you generally, just out of interest, try to put those points into the abstract that you'd present, or you at least try to generally bring that out in your abstract?
I did. I learned this one years ago as I was kind of trying to build my brand. Is the worst thing you can do if you're a speaker is write an abstract that talks about, X, Y, and Z, and then you show up and you talk about something else. And I mean, I guess again, that as an attendee, that happens, and there's not much you can do about it ahead of time. Again, you could certainly kind of walk out, but yeah, if you're a speaker, please make sure that whatever you're writing, and sometimes there's a disconnect here, right? Your marketing department says talk about these things, and somehow you talk about something else. Not sure what exactly the fix is for that, other than please don't do it. But yeah, I certainly, again, maybe advice to the authors out there.
Yeah.
As an attendee, and I'm probably going to get into this, but I'm going to switch topics on you a little bit here too. Is look, again, I've spoken a lot of times at a lot of places. Please don't feel bad or intimidated, or as though you're wasting people's time to go out, find that person afterwards. Hey, we always like to hear both positive and negative comments. I'm thrilled to hear constructive criticism. So please, tell me what you think, and tell me what you think honestly. I don't need, I have an enormous ego to begin with. I don't need any help building it. But, Let's talk. I mean, if you have other questions, if you want to talk about it, I think 90+% of the speakers that are going to stand up and talk are thrilled to have more discussions with you. Now, I've been in a lot of places where you can't just hang out in the room. You have to go find places to do that. But yeah, don't be shy about following up or talking more. Or,
Yeah.
hopefully most of the time I've ever spoke, I try to go hang out in the booth afterwards. Yeah.
Yep. Or just remember, even if there is a question and answer session in the bigger thing, now it's obviously sometimes a little intimidating to ask questions in front of a big group, but remember that if you have a question and you legitimately listen to the conversation, or you came in expecting a conversation about X, Y, or Z, it's fair game to ask questions about those things, right? Now, you don't want to be the professor who asks, some outside weird question that it has no relevance to anything that you're doing, but most people are going to understand, or at least have a similar conversation or similar question in their heads about what that topic was. So if you want to talk about vulnerability management, hey, I can't go out and patch PLCs on a daily basis. Like, what am I going to do instead of that? That's a fair game question if you're talking about vulnerability management,
Yeah.
right? You shouldn't assume everybody else is so much smarter than you, or vice versa.
Yeah, and in fact, most of the time the opposite is true. I mean, and look, I'm gonna say one that's a little, there's no such thing as a dumb question, and I really do truly believe that. But I don't like what I've kind of come to feel is the NPR question, is the person stands up and talks about themselves for 5 minutes before asking a question, and I don't care what that question is. That is a dumb question, because you've just wasted a bunch of people's time telling them your resume and then asking a question. And again, it doesn't matter whether it's smart or dumb. It's just a time waster. So ask the question. I don't need your resume. I don't need to know how.
Now, you can certainly give the resume afterwards, one-on-ones.
Happy.
And actually, that should hopefully, yield more conversation from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, fair enough. Good. Well,
so don't be shy. I think what you just said is don't be shy. Don't be an engineer.
Don't be shy. Don't be an engineer, right? And that's easier to say as a person who mistakenly got into this as a non-engineer.
Yeah. All right. What else?
Yeah, I think the other side is, look, there are a lot of activities that are going on around a conference, right? Most of the time, people are going out to dinners, doing other things like that. Now, granted, if you're in the market for a product, it's very easy to get a free dinner if a group is trying to pitch you a product. But even if you're not, like, again, part of your be interested and be interesting is to find a like-minded person or a couple people that you might be interested in having a longer conversation with. And I think it's imperative on you, even if you're super tired or super exhausted for the end of the day, to try your best to, again, build a little community, build a little help. Maybe you can be helpful to one of those people who's also in your world. So again, it's a little bit of giving back and a little bit of giving up your knowledge and giving up your interested parts of your personality to the bigger community to drive, I think, better conversations and a better experience for other people. More of a free giveaway.
Yeah. So probably for the lack of other better advice there, it's maybe find other attendees, not necessarily seeking out the reps for a product.
That's right. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Is that it?
I think that's probably it for my general tips. Any other thoughts?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I guess the thing, write stuff down. I see people taking pictures of slides, find out if slides are available. Again, clarification. I guess let me try to summarize everything, and then you tell me. As be prepared. Understand that there's different kind of conferences. Make sure that you can go to the one you want. If you need to go to something that's highly educational, look, I think we're all, many of us are in situations where the companies we work for may not have unlimited budgets. So going to, the things that are sort of purely educational might be tough. But at least understand, I may have to go ask for money to go to something like a SANS or an S4. If I can't do that, then can I go to something local? Can I go to something that's more commercial and just understand that there's difference? But either way, certainly in a commercial environment, you probably need to spend a little time preparing, and being understanding of what's kind of going on there. Then also be prepared in terms of looking the agenda. Excuse me, looking at the agenda, planning out your days, understanding when and where to go to the various booths that are probably going to be all over the place at those. I mean, the good news is there are even general security conferences that are local to you. So, worst comes to worst, you can go and find out those local ISSA or ICS or whatever chapters, or CSA or what have you. So there's a lot of options. Go out and find your options, right? Do a little research, spend your time, right? So I guess you said that, right? Do your prep, and then once you show up, what did you say? Be interested and be interesting. So in other words, be active, right? Don't sit in the corner. Don't get on your phone. All that stuff can wait. Make sure that everybody understands you're gone from the office. So you're there to learn. Don't go take sales calls or make sales calls or what have you, and build your network. What did I miss?
I think you got it quite well.
Okay. Well, you're a great teacher. See, I got all that stuff.
Thanks. No, I appreciate that. Well, that's good.
Well, hey, look, I think we gave good time to value. I was going to say you've once again wasted a half hour, but you've only wasted 16 and a half minutes listening to our nonsense today. If you found some value or you have some additional questions, comments, please leave them below. Closing thoughts?
Be interested, be interesting, and maybe you too can start your own conference someday.
Fair enough. All right. Thank you.